Hello listeners and welcome to this instalment of Cult News. If you find this content helpful or interesting, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. And if you would like to support the show, you can find me at patreon.com/The Cult Vault to pledge as little as £1 a month for exclusive content. And now, on to today's news. Tony Ortega at the underground bunker reported live from the Los Angeles courthouse last week regarding the Danny Masterson trial as the jury resumed deliberations after the week of Thanksgiving. It was determined a few days later, after changes to the jury because of COVID-19 and many days of deliberation, that the jury were hopelessly deadlocked. A mistrial was announced and, according to NBCnews.com, a new trial was set for March the 27th, 2023. And Masterson still faces up to 45 years in prison if he is found guilty on all 3 counts of forcible rape of 3 women between the years of 2001 and 2003. Just down the hall at the same courthouse, the Harvey Weinstein trial has entered deliberation, and CNN Entertainment has reported the deliberations resumed on Monday to determine the outcome of the trial. Weinstein is already serving a lengthy sentence in prison for sexual assault but faces up to an additional 60 years in prison on 2 counts of rape and 5 counts of sexual assault involving 4 women who testified throughout the trial. Weinstein is currently 70 years old. The Express has reported that Dirty Dancing star Jennifer Grey looks almost unrecognisable as she morphs into upcoming role as cult leader Gwen Shamblin, founder of the Way Down Workshop and Remnant Fellowship. The show, Starving for Salvation, is set to air sometime next year. TheAtlantic.com has an article this week about Sam Bankman-Fried, the disgraced founder of the now bankrupt FTX cryptocurrency and trading platform. The article details that Bankman-Fried was running 2 cult-like operations, one being the cult of crypto, and the other, according to the article, being the cult of effective altruism, or EA for short. It reads, "A philosophy that seeks to do the most good for the most people, now and in the future. Despite its controversies, I find EA, as it's often known, to be a compelling corrective for many modern activists and philanthropists. If you want to give away money, EA urges you to figure out how to make the most difference to the most lives. If you want to find a meaningful job, it offers clever, perhaps sometimes too clever, ideas for how to plough a career path that will create more value for the world than your likely replacement." YorkPress.co.uk has released an article detailing that a former cult member of an American group who suffered both physical and mental abuse has been arrested and charged for having explicit material of young children on his devices. The judge spoke of recognizing remorse in Alexander Walker as he stood before the judge in court, acknowledging Walker's complicated past, although this does not and could never excuse the crimes that he has committed. Japan News has an article this week detailing how the Tokyo Court District disposed of key documents regarding Aum Shinrikyo's order to disband after the 1995 sarin gas attacks on the Tokyo Underground subway system. This was the only instance in Japanese history where the group with religious status was legally forced to discontinue. Later, the group renamed itself Aleph and has incorporated new teachings. The scrutiny on how the court keeps historical documents and does not dispose of them comes after the Unification Church has come under fire within Japan as an organized religion that may be forced to undergo the same legal disbandment that Aum Shinrikyo experienced in the late 90s. Turkish cult leader Adnan Oktar has been arrested, charged and sentenced to 8,658 years in prison. According to the BBC, the 66-year-old had his own TV station where he preached religious sermons, gaining a following of young women that he referred to as his kittens. Oktar committed illegal acts on his female followers, including young children. An Istanbul court found the man guilty of charges of sexual assault, blackmail, military espionage, and counter-terrorism laws, as well as a few others. Fox News has reported that FLDS branch member Samuel Bateman is under investigation for allegedly having up to 20 wives, with some of them as young as 9, one potentially being his own daughter. Prior to and since the arrest of Warren Jeffs, some have reported that Bateman was being groomed for leadership in the FLDS sect and involved with a new branch that has come off of the FLDS movement, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is a branch itself of the Mormon faith that practices polygamy. And the FBI have launched an investigation into the alleged cult leader after accusations of sexual assault have come forward. Channel News Asia have reported this week that years ago, thousands of seekers were said to flock to a man who claimed that he could multiply people's money, but then dead bodies started showing up. Damas Kenjang amassed a huge following, including high-up officials. According to the article, Kang Jeng began growing a following in 2009, and by 2012 had registered his foundation, which ended up being worth $3 million. In 2016, two of Kang Jeng's higher-ups went missing, one named Abdul. The article reads, on April 13, 2016, things took a dramatic turn. Without a word to his family, Abdul disappeared. The next day, his body was found, his head wrapped in a plastic bag and duct-taped. More duct tape covered his entire face, a noose around his neck. His hands were tied, and there were bruises on the back of his head. Despite Kang Jeng's arrest, he still has a strong and faithful following all these years later. Guardian podcast Today in Focus has featured a new episode focusing on evangelical Christianity, with Rachel Rain speaking out against the abuses endured within the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God. You can find updates from this whistleblowing effort at Surviving Universal UK on Twitter. A France 24 article honours the memories of those lost in the tragic events of November 18, 1978, the day that some 914 adults and children lost their lives in the jungles of Guyana, under the orders of Jim Jones. A settler of a nearby village talks about how he was 31 at the time of the massacre and recalls how droves of poor African Americans rolled up and created a self-sufficient community in the rural parts of the jungle out of primal tools and materials. Fitzduke said it was extraordinary craftsmanship and goes into what he witnessed from the group during their time there, and how if you are to visit the location today, there are historical tire tracks and other markings. This is all that remains of Jonestown. The Examiner Live has reported on a historical women's movement that existed in Yorkshire, the Silver Sisterhood. Led by Marianne Martindale, the group set up various chapters of their society which focused on their Laura Ashley-styled clothing, coding saucy video games, and went by the name The Order. The article states that The Order produced a periodical called The Coming Age, which was advertised for sale in the now defunct feminist magazine Spare Rib. For a copy, buyers were asked to post 45p to a house on Industrial Street in the centre of Todmorden. The group spread throughout Yorkshire in the 80s and were around until the 90s, opening a Victorian school, where Martindale was convicted for assault after caning a schoolgirl. The school closed in 1992. The Independent has an article detailing how ex-minister Jacob Rees-Mogg has attacked the abortion rights movement, calling it a cult of death, saying how the vast amounts of abortions in the modern age is tragic, calling them dangerous and grotesque. He says it is wrong for the state to allow abortion and refused to agree that the right to termination of pregnancy should be protected even in cases of rape or incest. Fox News has reported that former college student has slammed a cult-like college education, saying, "I had to unlearn 4 years of wokeism." The article details that Annabella Rockwell was taught victimhood and oppression during her time at Mount Holyoke, a $60,000 a year liberal women's college in South Hadley. Rockwell explained on the Tucker Carlson Tonight Show how her mother reportedly paid a deprogrammer $300 a day to save her from self-described cult-like education. Israel National News has reported that the case of 17-year-old missing Moish Kleinerman has led investigators towards the direction of the Lev Tahor group, an extremist branch of the Jewish religion. Although this is just one of the many possibilities stated within the article, which also mentions that Kleinerman could be abroad. And to this end, police contacted their counterparts in other countries, requesting aid in their search for the 17-year-old. Australian News has reported that an alleged sex cult leader will be released from prison following a 21-month stint inside after being accused of rape within a polyamorous community that he led. The article reads, a former soldier accused of running a sex cult in regional New South Wales, where he lived with 6 polyamorous partners, will finally be released after 21 months behind bars. Robert James Davis appeared in the NSW Supreme Court on Wednesday for his 3rd application for bail in a matter of weeks after he was charged with 40 serious accounts related to the alleged House of Cadafor cult near Armidale in northern New South Wales. He has been in custody for close to 21 months after he was arrested in March 2021. The ex-Australian Defence Force soldier was originally facing 3 charges over allegedly keeping women in sexual servitude, but the charges were withdrawn 6 months later. And that is the end of this week's cult news. And because we missed a week, we have skipped over some things like Cliff Richard stopping a woman from moving into the local area because she is a witch, and prosecutor Moira Henzer giving talks on bringing down NXIVM in a successful prosecution trial that left cult leader Keith Raniere sentenced to 120 years in prison. If you find this content helpful or interesting, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. And if you want access to exclusive content, you can head over to patreon.com/The Cult Vault to support the show for only £1 a month. I'm your speaker, Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast.